Reza's late today, so I thought I'd start the podcast without him. I know he's doing up his flat, he's renovating his flat, so he must be busy with the workmen and the builders. Maybe we should talk about building and construction today if Reza ever arrives. Oh, here he is, just in time.
Welcome to Aprender Inglés con Reza y Craig.
You look a bit stressed, mate. Is everything okay? Are you feeling all right? Have a seat.
Let me just catch my breath.
I'll get you some water.
Yes, I've just come from my flat where the building work is still underway, but it's nearly finished. It's nearly finished. So that's why I'm late. I'm very sorry. I had to keep an eye on the workmen.
We'll be speaking about building and construction in this episode, and with nearly 50 years of teaching between us, Reza and I will help you improve your English and take it to the next level. So, to do up a flat is renovar, to renovate, hacer reformas. How's it going? Is it finished yet?
It's not finished yet, but it hasn't been very delayed. I say it hasn't been very delayed because you kind of expect delays, don't you, with workmen? You never really think they're going to finish exactly when they said. So it's been about 3.5 months, and they told me in about a week it should be finished. So I think that probably means 2 weeks.
Yeah, you've got to double it, haven't you? Double what the builders say. So you've been doing your flat up for, did you say 2.5 months?
3.5.
3.5 months. We're using the phrasal verb to do up, and it's separable. You can put the object in the middle. Do the flat up, or do it up. He's doing up his flat. How many different tradesmen have been working on it? Because there are many different names of different things depending on what the builders do. So one is a bricklayer, for example, a builder who lays bricks or puts bricks in place when you're building a house or a wall or a flat. Did you employ any bricklayers?
No, it wasn't necessary. And by the way, just in case you're not sure, brick is not un brick, by the way. There's the Spanish word un brick. That's not a brick in English.
Ladrillo?
Ladrillo, yeah. Un brick in English is a carton. Yeah, un brick in Spanish, a carton in English. So don't be fooled by that. No one wants somebody to put cartons down in their house. They want them to put bricks, ladrillos. But in my case, it hasn't been necessary. However, I have had the services of a plasterer. A plasterer doesn't lay bricks, but a plasterer works on top of the bricks. They put a smooth surface on your bricks so that your walls look nice and smooth and flat.
So plaster in Spanish is escayora, but is there a name for a plasterer, for the trade of plastering?
There probably is, but I've listened to many Spanish conversations and they just say, el que te va a hacer la pared, or something like that. Is it maybe, can you tell us listeners, is it escayolista, or we don't know what it is because we've never really heard anyone say it.
Have you had any walls put up or any new rooms created using drywall, which is plasterboard? I think drywall is the American expression and plasterboard is what we say in the UK. Plasterboard are big boards that have cardboard on the outside and a lot of plaster in the middle, and you make walls and then you plaster smoothly over the top of it to give you a nice finish. Have you used that?
I have used that, but I haven't made any new rooms. It's just to change the ceilings that I've used plasterboard. Ceilings, C-E-I-L-I-N-G, is techos. So I've changed all the ceilings using plasterboard.
So the ceilings are now lower.
The ceilings are now higher.
Higher.
But they were false before, false ceilings, and they're false now. But the new false ceilings are a bit higher than the original false ceilings.
And the people who help builders are called labourers. You probably know the word labour and the verb to labour, but a labourer is a person who does the heavy lifting, the carrying, mixing the cement, mixing the plaster, and preparing everything, carrying the bricks. That's the labourer's job, all the hard work, the physical work.
Another job that's very important is to lay or put down tiles, azulejos. And the person who does that is a tiler. So tile, T-I-L-E, and in the person add R, tiler. They put down tiles. I know what you're thinking, but lots of people do that. Yeah, in modern times, people who are tilers are also probably plasterers and maybe other things as well. There are not many people who only put down tiles, but in theory, you could be someone who specializes in only doing that, and you would be a tiler.
So I'm sure you didn't have your bathroom tiled or retiled because it was tiled fairly recently, maybe 2 or 3 years ago. So have you had your kitchen tiled?
Yes.
And floor tiles, possibly?
Yes, I've retiled the floor and the wall of the kitchen. I haven't retiled the rest of the house because I'm going to change the tiles on the floor for wooden floors.
Very nice. And have you had a person who came around to deal with the water? What would that person be called?
Aha. Not the waterman, no. That would be too easy, wouldn't it? It's called the plumber. That's Plumber. So plumbers are people who deal with things connected to water. So bathrooms, kitchens, anywhere where water is used. It's a strange word, isn't it?
Yeah, especially because of the silent B in the middle. A plumber does the plumbing.
Do you know where it comes from?
No.
There is a kind of connection with Spanish because originally in all plumbing, that is installations with water, plumbing, they used to use lead.
Mm-hmm.
Lead is plomo.
Which is very dangerous.
Yeah, so now it's illegal, but in the past it was the standard material for all the tubes or pipes.
That's right, because lead pipes were very common.
In Spanish, as you know, lead is plomo. And in Latin, it's plumbio or plumbium.
Ah, I see the connection.
And that's why it's called a plumber in English. So there's a kind of connection with Spanish there.
Okay.
The guy who deals with lead things.
So that's an easy way to remember that word, plumber, fontanero. Have you had anything done with the electricity? And what's the name of the person who deals with electricity?
I certainly have had things done. The entire house has been rewired.
What does rewired mean?
Well, we talked about retiling the floors, changing the tiles. To rewire means to change all the electrical wires, or if you prefer, cables. Wires are cables. So the whole house has been rewired. And of course, to do that, you need an electrician, a specialist in electricity.
And there's a specialist in glass. There's a builder who will put in your windows. In our flat, we've had a glass wall between the kitchen and the living room so that more light comes through into other parts of the flat. A person who deals with glass and helps you to renew and develop the glass areas of your house is a glazier. Glazier, that's Glaziers. All of these words, as usual, in the show notes at inglespodcast.com/272. Glazier. Have you had any glaziers work?
I have, because I've had all the windows changed. So I've needed a glazier. I've also, I'm at the moment using a painter. I say at the moment because logically, painting tends to come near the end of the process. It would be a bit silly to paint things at the beginning and then do work, and the paint work would become dirty. So,
especially if the electrician's putting cables and wires in the wall.
Right.
Yeah.
So I'm using a painter as well. Also, I told you that I was having my kitchen retiled. and a few other things. So I'm using the services of a person who specializes in only kitchens. They install, or if you prefer, they fit, F-I-T. That means install kitchens. And that is a kitchen fitter. So F-I-T-T-E-R. A kitchen fitter is fitting my kitchen.
And that could also be used as an adjective to describe the thing. So you can have a fitted kitchen. You can have a fitted bookshelf, a fitted wardrobe, which means, I think it's empotrado in Spanish. So it's fitted to the shape of the room or the flat. Can you think of names of other traders? There's one maybe that is not used here in Spain so often. What's that?
Virtually never, but if I were in Britain or Ireland, I would need this person. I would need a carpet layer. Now, what is a carpet? Is it a carpeta? No, it's not. A carpet is moqueta. Carpet is that material which goes on your floor. It's kind of like a rug, R-U-G, rug. But the thing is, a rug can be put down or taken off whenever you want. But a carpet is put down more or less permanently or for a very long period of time, and it covers all of the floor, 100%. It's not just one little area or one little square. As you know, if you've ever been to the UK or Ireland or some other countries, in many rooms, people have carpets. So the services of a carpet layer, or sometimes called a carpet fitter as well, are very important. Here in Valencia, it would probably be a bad idea to lay carpet because, first of all, you're going to be too warm in the summer because it generates heat. But that's exactly why people want it in the UK. They want the heat that the carpet generates in the winter.
Exactly.
So no, here in Valencia, I don't need a carpet layer.
I wish we did have carpets here in Valencia because they're very good sound insulators. So the podcast would sound better if I had fitted carpet in this room from wall to wall. We speak about wall-to-wall carpets because they go from one wall to the other wall, covering all of the floor. Have you come across any cowboy tradesmen among all these different workers and tradesmen you've had?
My tradesmen, my workers are okay. Some are a bit better than others. I say my workmen plural because when you're doing up a whole flat, you find that in the course of 3.5 months, about a dozen different people have worked in your flat. It's not just one or two or three. You maybe use the services of 3 people, or you get a contract from 3 people, but then they will have their own laborers. And depending on the day of the week, the laborers change. They might have one person who only works for them on a Monday and Wednesday, and another one who works Fridays or something like that. So a lot of people pass through your property when it's being done up. Mm-hmm. All of them seem okay. However, when I was asking for estimates, I came across a few cowboy tradesmen.
Well, let's explain that. So what's an estimate and what does come across mean?
Well, to come across means to meet by chance, not planned. So I came across some cowboy tradesmen. When I asked for estimates is when they estimate, they give you an estimation, not exactly, about how much they think the work is going to cost. And some of the things they said for such little work, or the lack means not enough, the lack of detail for such a specific price really surprised me. And I thought, this seems to be a cowboy tradesman.
You got to be careful of these cowboy tradesmen, people who don't do a good job and might take advantage of you. And in a similar way, when you're studying English, you have to be careful not to go to cowboy academies that will lock you into a course and maybe you feel cheated, engañado, because of these cowboy academies. We'd like to say thank you to italki, who sponsor this podcast. And on italki, you can find a teacher who will help you with your English. Now, the difference with studying at an academy is that you're not locked into a course of study. You're not closed and committed to one teacher for 2 or 3 months. If you're not happy with your teacher, you just change your teacher for the next lesson. So it's very easy to experiment and try different teachers until you find one that you're happy with. And one of the main reasons why we like italki is the flexibility. So you're not only flexible with your choice of teacher, but also with the accent and where the teacher lives and the cultural background of the teacher. So you could choose an American, Australian, a British English teacher, but also with day and time. You're flexible so that you can choose a day and a time that's convenient for you. So you register, you choose your teacher, you schedule your lesson, and you connect on Skype. If you would like more details about italki's services, go to the show notes for this episode. That's inglespodcast.com/272. Click on the italki link and you'll be directed to their webpage. Now, if you sign up and pay for your first lesson through that link, you will automatically get a $10 credit from italki. And Reza and I would like to thank italki for sponsoring Aprender Inglés con Reza y Craig. Reza, how many estimates did you ask for before starting the work? Presupuestos, estimates.
Yes, I think I used 3 different people. I came across more than 3 people, but some people seemed like such cowboys that I didn't even ask them for an estimate. So I actually received 3 estimates. I asked each individual for a breakdown in their estimate. So to tell me what each piece of work would cost. So I could work out the total for everything, how much they would charge for everything, but also how much they would charge for example, retiling the kitchen floor, putting down the wooden floor, changing the false ceilings. And I compared the 3 different breakdowns, and I saw that maybe one estimate was cheaper for the kitchen, but it was more expensive for the ceilings, or vice versa.
So did you use word of mouth to find these builders originally? Word of mouth is boca a boca, so recommendations by word of mouth, or the internet. How did you find the builders originally?
Personal recommendations. There's a guy called Craig Wheeland.
I think I know him.
Yeah, and
Bit of a cowboy teacher.
Well, they do say that, yeah. No, he's not at all. And not only would I trust Craig's word for anything to do with podcasts or the English language, but also because I've been in his flat many times to record the podcast, amongst other reasons. And I like the work that's been done in his flat. I asked Craig about the workmen he used, particularly his plasterer. I like the job the plasterer did. And so my plasterer is the one that plastered Craig's house. And through the plasterer, then the plasterer, recommended someone to fit the kitchen fitter. So I got him through them. Now
that's a bit of a tongue twister, the kitchen fitter.
The kitchen fitter. And then for all the rest of the work, it's different people. And the reason I got hold of them, to get hold of someone is like PR, is because by chance, they happened to be working on a flat in my building above me. And I talked to the owner, the landlord of that flat, and he said he was very happy with their work. Mm-hmm. They were punctual. Their estimate was more or less accurate. They weren't going over budget. They were staying within the estimate, and that the work was very good. And I asked if I could see the work, and they said no problem. And I was happy with the work, and so I decided to use them.
Right. Okay. Now you live on the 4th floor. Is that right?
That's right.
Is there a lift in your building?
No lift, no elevator. You got to walk up the stairs.
Wow. So they had to carry up all of the equipment and carry down the rubble, RUBBLE, the rubble, los escombros. Did they put up any scaffolding outside the building in the exterior. So put up is montar and scaffolding is andamios. So did you need any scaffolding? Did you put up scaffolding on the outside?
It wasn't necessary, no, because it's just work in the interior. However, on my block of flats, not long ago, about half a year ago, there was scaffolding because the whole block of flats, so all 6 floors, were having the facade painted. La fachada, yeah? The facade. So that wasn't me individually. That was the whole block of flats. So about half a year ago or a year ago, we needed scaffolding for that. But for my personal renovation work, no.
And did the workmen need to wear any protective gear while they were working? How safety conscious were they?
What do you mean by gear? Can you...
Equipment. Any protective equipment or gear, GEAR equipment.
Right, things like helmets and things like that, yeah?
Yeah.
Helmets are hard things you wear on your head to protect you. I don't know if they really have needed them, but they certainly haven't worn them. I don't think there was any need for them. Yes, they have worn some things. They've used special gloves, also masks to avoid breathing in so much dust. Dust is polvo.
Yeah.
I see that sometimes they wear goggles, not Google. We're not talking internet.
And not Google goggles either.
We're talking about goggles.
Goggles, GOGGLES.
So, what are goggles, Craig?
They're protective glasses that you wear on your eyes. Also when you're swimming, if you wear swimming goggles, that stops the water and the chlorine in the water from going inside your eyes. So swimming goggles or protective goggles so that no pieces of metal or brick or dust goes in your eyes.
There's one more thing they wear sometimes. That's reinforced boot caps. So on their boots, they have maybe a piece of steel or a very strong piece of plastic over the toe so that if they drop, dejar caer, drop something, it won't hurt their feet.
Yeah, that could be nasty. That could be very, very painful. So can you talk us through very quickly the different stages of doing up a flat? For example, did the electrician rewire the flat before the floor was laid? What was the order more or less of the building work?
The order of the work. So when you've got the estimate, etc., and you've decided to go and start, first they
smash everything, right?
Yeah,
they break everything.
The breaking comes first. Anything that needs to be broken gets broken first.
So they knock down the walls, take out the windows.
That's it. So can you hear Craig using phrasal verbs there? You knock down the wall, so hit it so it falls down. You take out the windows, which you're going to replace. Also, you might take out the old wires or wiring. You do all that first. And then they rebuild any wall which may have been knocked down, which needs to be built
By mistake.
By mistake, yeah. Or in a slightly different way. Maybe it needs to be changed in some way. Remodeled or put in a slightly different place. And in the walls that you're going to be using, new or old, they put in the conduits. Let's say the canals, the areas where the tubes, the pipes, any plumbing and any wiring, so wherever you're going to have water flowing or electricity through cables, they put that in first. Mm-hmm. When that's all done, and then they put in the actual wires and the plumbing, and then they cover that over.
With plaster. They plaster over.
Yeah.
That's another phrasal verb, to plaster over.
To plaster over the top of something.
Top. Mm-hmm.
So you can't see it, and that's done. So that's kind of like the basic infrastructure, if you like, the important stuff to get the water and the electricity to where it needs to go.
And then they lay the floor.
Then they deal with the ceilings. So they will take down the false ceiling, and if you want a new one, put that up. It's logical to do that before the floor because a lot of the rubble that Craig mentioned, the rubble is going to fall on the floor.
Right. Yeah, makes sense.
There's no point doing your floor yet. Do the ceilings and also check the electrical cables which go through the ceilings as well. Get them in place. And then finish the ceilings, and then you will start
The floor.
the plastering. I said you start, but you don't quite finish, because as Craig says, you now do the floor. And then when the floor is nearly finished, then you complete the plastering near the floor, because they can complete most of the plastering, but until the floor is done, they can't connect the walls up to the floor. So they kind of start one stage, nearly finish it, plastering of the walls, but don't quite finish it on purpose. Then they do the floors, and then when they finish the floors, then they can complete the bit of the wall which is now going to connect with the floor. So timing is of the essence. It's really important. And then obviously then the final bit is to complete the painting. They may or may not have done a couple of layers, Layer, capas, of painting before now. It doesn't really matter. But after they finish the walls and the floor, then they will give the final layer of paint.
Right. Very important things, in my opinion, the sockets and the light switches. So sockets in the walls, they are enchufes, and the light switches, where you switch the light on and off, interruptores. Very important. How did you decide where to put the sockets and the light switches?
Yeah, that's a good question, Craig. And as I think you know yourself, you better think about that. You really should think about that very carefully.
Yes.
Before you decide. What you do not want to do is just leave it up to the electrician to decide. Because let's face it, human nature is to try and make your life easy. And you shouldn't be surprised if the electrician advises you to put all the sockets in the places which are easiest for him to put them in.
Yeah.
So you should decide where you think they should go, and then tell the electrician. There may be a practical reason why they can't go where you want them to go. That has happened to me in the kitchen. And I do believe the electrician when he said that he couldn't put them in a specific place, because where the sockets, this word that Craig mentioned earlier, this enchufes, was going to be in my kitchen, was exactly in the same place as my neighbors on the other side of the wall.
Mm-hmm. You got thin walls, obviously.
Very thin walls. And I couldn't have them in that place because my new wiring might have interfered with the neighbor's wiring.
Couldn't you just have a hole in the kitchen wall so that you could reach through and plug your appliance into his socket?
Oh, that would be brilliant, yeah. So he'd pay for it, what's more. And I'd have free ventilation.
Yeah, just put your hand through and plug it in. To plug in enchufar, to plug in an electrical appliance. How did you plan for wardrobes and cupboards, like storage space? Wardrobes and cupboards, los armarios. How did you plan where to put the storage space and the shelves, estantes?
Well, I made my bedroom a little bit bigger. So I thought I would put the wardrobe, not the cupboard, the wardrobe, because you put clothes in a wardrobe, you put other things in a cupboard. I decided to put the wardrobe at the other end of the room, not where I sleep, but the other end, because I thought, well, I don't want to be getting clothes out from a wardrobe, which is near my bed. That would be uncomfortable. So I'll put the wardrobe at the other extreme of the room.
So it's not a walk-in wardrobe, it's a wardrobe that opens out into the room.
Yeah, I would love to have a walk-in wardrobe, but money is a factor and it's quite expensive.
And do you think you've planned enough storage space? Do you have cupboards for other things, for your books and teaching equipment, that kind of thing?
Yeah, because I'm having a new kitchen fitted, I've planned, I hope, to take advantage of every single space and get as much storage space as possible there, yeah. And as for the rest of the house, there isn't much space where I can really put any more cupboards. So I'm just going to use a few shelves. But to be honest, I don't really need much storage space outside the bedroom or the kitchen. Would you say that's true for most people? That's where you store most things?
It's not necessarily true for me. We have two large cupboards, and I don't think they're big enough because things like the vacuum cleaner, any spare chairs that we take out when guests come, cameras and files and papers and stationery like pens and pencils and envelopes and things like that. There's so much stuff that needs to be sort of out of sight and kept in a cupboard that I don't think you can have enough storage space.
Yeah, I forgot that. In fact, I already have a couple of built-in cupboards.
Fitted cupboards.
Not fitted. I would distinguish. Built-in means that they were already there in the original building.
Empotrado.
Yes, but I wouldn't call it fitted.
Okay.
Still, because for me, built-in means it's an original feature of the house. No one came later to do it. It's in the original design. Whereas for me, fitted is that you paid someone to make an alteration.
Made to measure to the size of the room.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But
I agree.
for me, it's not the same as built-in.
You're right. Built-in might mean that there's actually a space in the flat with concrete or plaster that's been specially designed
Yeah.
inside the flat. Yeah.
The house was like that from the start. No one was paid to make it to measure. It was originally like that. It's an original feature of the house. And because I can't really do much with those built-in cupboards, I might as well keep on using them as they are built-in cupboards. So actually, I'm not going to change them. And hopefully I'll have enough storage space there. And the rest will be shelves for books, because I kind of like having books out on display. I like most of my books being visible.
So you're going to have bookshelves in the living room, and I guess also in the office, that little office room.
Exactly.
Are you going to have bookshelves there for your teaching books and files?
Yeah, I'll have a few shelves there. And also in that room, I have a small built-in cupboard where I can store books.
Are you going to buy any new furniture or electrical appliances for the kitchen, for example?
Oh, yes. Electrical appliance, that's a good word. Craig's talking about washing machines, dishwashers.
What's the difference?
So a washing machine is for washing clothes, and a dishwasher is for washing dishes. I've already bought those new. I've already bought a new sink. Sink is la pila or fregadero. A new oven, a new microwave oven, and a new hob, H-O-B, hob. The hob, or sometimes people say the rings, where you have a ring of fire, if it's gas, where you cook, you heat things up on top of a surface. So the oven is the space with the door that opens and you put it in and you close it. I got a new one of those, and I've also got a new hob for cooking things in saucepans and frying pans.
Yeah, so you'd cook your cakes, or you bake your cakes in the oven, or your bread in the oven, and you'd fry bacon on the hob.
Exactly.
Looking back, because you've nearly finished, what was the biggest headache of the whole thing? Because it's a very big job. You've changed pretty much everything in the flat. What was the biggest challenge or the biggest problem you had to overcome?
Well, who knows? We haven't quite finished yet, but the biggest headache was probably deciding exactly where everything should go in the kitchen, because I like cooking. And for me, it's important to have a well-organized kitchen. And so I spent a lot of time thinking about exactly where the sockets should go. And because my kitchen has to be small because of limitations of space, I had to try to take full advantage of the limited space I have. So think exactly where can I put storage space? Where should I not? Because I need a little bit of room to move around. So it was striking the balance, to get things right, not too much, not too little, between storage space and usable space to move around. Usability in my kitchen. That was probably the hardest, I would say.
And it's the first time, I think, that you've had a dishwasher.
Yes, I've never owned a dishwasher before.
You used to be the dishwasher.
Yes, my own two hands.
And with these fittings and tiles, etc., windows, did you choose the fittings or did the workman decide for you and say, oh, these are the windows we're going to put in, for example?
A bit of a mixture. For example, the windows, I let them decide the exact model, etc. I didn't really care about, as long as it met my basic requirements.
So you wanted double glazing, which means dos capas. You wanted double glazing for noise, etc.
Exactly. Double glazing, so two panes, P-A-N-E, like a sheet of glass, 2 panes to keep out the noise and also to keep out the heat and keep in the cold.
In the summer.
Yep. Obviously.
Very, very different to Belfast. You want the opposite in Belfast.
Exactly. So that was very necessary. And also the way the windows open, do they open horizontally, vertically, etc. But apart from that, I didn't really care what the model was because I, like most people, I don't know much about different models of makes of window. So I just said, how much would it cost to have this type of window? And then where the workman got the window from was of no importance to me, as long as it's not too expensive. Of course, the material as well. For example, in the case of windows, you have to choose aluminium or PVC. The problem is...
What did you choose?
Well, a mixture, because PVC is usually considered to be the best material. However, it's uncommon and not that advisable, according to the workmen, to have PVC sliding windows or doors.
I didn't know that.
Aha. So PVC is better material, aluminium. It will sellar, S-E-A-L, better, but it doesn't really make much difference if you're going to make them sliding. That's corredera. Windows or doors. There's virtually no difference, and yet the PVC will be a lot more expensive. So hardly anybody gets PVC sliding doors or windows because you're going to pay more money for nothing. The aluminium will work just as well, possibly even better.
So some rooms have sliding windows and some rooms have PVC windows that you open.
With a handle.
With a handle.
Exactly. So if they open with a handle,
una asa,
they're PVC. If they're sliding, they're aluminium. There's a logic in that.
Yeah.
And as for the light switches, los interruptores, I didn't really care that much as long as they weren't too big or too small. I just trusted the electrician. I don't know. What about you? Whenever you were getting your house done up, did you specifically choose a specific light switch or type of socket?
I was very, very keen on getting, to be keen on is de tener muchas ganas tener. I was very keen on getting a dimmer switch for the lounge here. This light over there, you can just see in the ceiling. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 very small lights that you can dim. To dim means to lower the intensity of the light. So if you do not want a lot of light, you dim down the light so it gets darker. And if you want more light, you increase it. So a dimmer switch, you can regulate by turning it how much light you have in the room. And I really, really wanted one of those. And we went out specially to buy it, and the electrician installed it. And after about 4 or 5 months, it stopped working. So and we changed it for an ordinary switch that's just on and off. Yeah, it was bad quality.
I'm not in the least surprised to hear this.
They're very expensive, and sometimes they don't work properly.
Often they don't work properly.
Yep.
My electrician advised me specifically not to get any.
That's good advice.
He said, I will put them in at no extra cost, as many as you like. Makes no difference to me. My advice is don't put any in, because they break very easily.
They do. I think you have to spend a lot of money and buy really, really top quality dimmer switch for it to work properly. So we just have the on-off switches, the normal ones.
And then to replace the bulbs, they're special light bulbs.
What are bulbs?
The light bulbs are las bombillas. And they're special and they cost quite a lot of money to replace.
Yeah.
So they're very, I'm afraid to tell you, Craig, they're very out of fashion these days. They sold many more dimmable lights 10 or 20 years ago than they do now. They're not popular at all now
Yeah.
because they have a reputation for being faulty and breaking a lot.
Have your neighbours complained with noise, dust, workmen going up and down the stairs?
Not to me, not to my face.
Maybe under their breath, which means to themselves, yeah.
Who knows? Maybe behind my back they talk amongst themselves, but they haven't said anything to me.
You're lucky.
But then again, I have never complained about any of my neighbours doing work. So I was understanding to them, and now they're being understanding to me.
That's good to hear. We spoke about the word budget earlier, budget, which is presupuesto. Notice in English you have two words that mean presupuesto. There's estimate, that we spoke about at the beginning of the podcast, and budget. They're not the same, are they? So estimate is the approximate amount of money you think you will need to spend to do a job. So can you give me an estimate? Can you tell me more or less how much it will cost? The budget is how much you have to spend, how much is in the bank for doing the flat up. So Reza, did you go over budget, or did it come in under budget, less money than you'd planned?
As I expected almost, it's going to be a little over budget. But somehow these things always seem to go over budget. For me, and I guess for many people, the question is how much. So unexpected things do happen. So you've got to pay for them. It hasn't gone much over budget, so I'm happy enough.
Good.
It's
Good.
more or less what I thought it would be.
That's good news. So now that you're nearly at the end and you've nearly got this new flat, this wonderful new flat to live in, looking back in hindsight means looking in the past and rethinking things, thinking things again. Would you do anything differently if you had to do this again?
Yes, I would. I would probably be a little bit stricter about some of the things I asked for. I would, although I thought that I did my research, I checked things out on internet and checked with other people about what was good and bad and advisable. I think I did quite a lot, but you can always do more. I wish I'd done a little bit more, and I could have been even more particular about which type of sockets or exactly where I wanted a certain cupboard in the kitchen. So I'm pretty much happy, but there's always room for improvement, isn't there? There's nothing that's going to really upset me, but there's certain things which it's now too late to change, and I think, they probably could be slightly better, but it's not the end of the world.
But it sounds like in general you're quite happy with the way things have gone.
Yeah. I think my workmen have been very nice. You do hear horror stories, don't you, of people who have a very bad experience with workmen who don't do what they're asked and who are late and ask for more money for no reason, don't you?
Yes, builders do have a reputation for not being the most high-performing workers in terms of punctuality, reliability, efficiency, and delivering the product as agreed before, and bringing everything in, coming in on budget or under budget. That's not something that we associate with builders, or even maybe honesty. So what are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, well, mine have been very, very honest. I don't think they've really deceived me in any way. If I compare that to a little bit of work I had done about 12 years ago in my bathroom, just only the bathroom.
How many years ago?
About 12 years ago.
Was it that long?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, that was just work on my bathroom, not the rest of my house.
But I thought it was 5 or 6 years ago.
Oh,
Wow.
No. It was about 12 years ago. Yeah.
Wow.
In that case, I know that at least once or twice one of the workmen lied. I can't say another way. He didn't tell the truth because he was to meet me at a certain time at the house, And I stayed at home especially to meet him, as you have to for workmen. It took up my whole morning because he said sometime between 8 and 12, the typical thing. They never give you an exact time, do they? So 8 and 12, and I'll be there. And I waited all morning and he didn't come. And the next day when he arrived, whenever he felt like it, I said, well, where were you yesterday? He said, yeah, where were you? I said, well, I was at home waiting for you. He said, no, I came and you weren't there. I said, oh, what time? He said, well, I don't know. I think it was about 10. Yeah, I think, well, I was at home. Well, I rang the bell and you didn't answer. And he didn't ring the bell. And in fact, the day before I had gone down and checked the bell and I'd asked my neighbor to call me to make sure the bell was working, and it was working. He did not ring the bell. He did not come, I think. He just said he came and that I wasn't there or the bell wasn't working. I think he made that up. I think he invented that excuse.
Yeah, I think that's probably what happened. So it can be a lottery. It can be very difficult to find good workmen and good builders. So as Reza has done, get good recommendations. And I think listeners will agree with me that we're very happy that you're happy with how it's gone so far. I look forward to seeing the finished flats and having a cup of tea with you there when it's all finished.
Thanks very much. And if you hear Craig someday saying very sadly that he'll have to continue the podcast without me, you'll know it's because I've electrocuted myself in the new flat, or a ceiling has fallen down on me, or I have drowned in the bath because of a water
or fallen out the window because it wasn't fitted properly.
You'll know what's happened to me.
Do you have any horror stories when it comes to doing up your flat? Have you had similar experiences? We'd love to hear from you. Please send us a message and practice some of the vocabulary that we've spoken about in this podcast. You can reach us by sending a voice message, which we prefer. Go to speakpipe.com/Ingles podcast. That's SPEAKPIPE. Or just record your voice and attach it to an email. Reza, where can they send emails?
You can write to us. That's craig@inglespodcast.com or belfastreza@gmail.com.
You're invited to check out the Mansion Inglés downloadable courses at store.mansioningles.net. And before we go, we'd like to thank our wonderful patrons who are supporting us every week on Patreon. You can join our Patreon program for a minimum of $1 per month. Of course, more is also very much appreciated. And by doing so, you get instant access to recent transcriptions that have been transcribed by our friend Angelica. If you want to support us on Patreon, the address is Patreon, patreon.com/Ingles podcast. All of these links are available on the website at inglespodcast.com/272. What's next week, Reza?
On next week's episode, tea.
A nice cup of tea. That would be nice. Shall we have one?
Let's stop for one now.
Let's do it. Have a cup of tea and biscuits. Thank you for listening. Until next week, it's goodbye from me.
And goodbye from me.
The music in this podcast is by Pitts. The track is called See You Later.